What's up? Glad you could join us. So today we're going to be going over a test that I did on this rifle here, which was introduced, I believe, in April of last year, 2020, which turned out to be a massive disaster. Not the introduction of the rifle, but the year in its entirety. We introduced the rifle, was going to do a whole bunch of testing on it, and then everything just kind of took a back burner because 2020 literally was the biggest pile of crap that we've seen in a long time. I did do a test on the rifle with a compilation of a large variety of bullets, ranging from, I think, 100 grain up to 140 grain, which we'll go over here in a moment. But that's what this video is going to be over as a quick little intro. For those of you that are interested, stick around. If not, hop over to another video, watch something else. This is what we're going to be going over today. This is a Mossberg Patriot Predator. It's got the Strata camo on it, and if you can see, I don't know if you can see it over here, it's got a threaded muzzle, and it has some fluting on the barrel. I'm not really a huge proponent of fluting. It's not something that I need in a rifle. It's cool to have, but it's not something that I necessarily look for when I'm going to buy one. It also has a fluted bolt. I strongly compare this or relate this with a Savage rifle because it's got a lot of very similar parts and pieces and whatnot. Can't say the same for the safety because it does have kind of more of a Remington 700 style safety, which I like better actually, so that is a plus. The thing came with the pick rail mounted already. If you guys saw the intro video, this video was supposed to shortly follow up that intro video and then got pushed back by about a year, so I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Hopefully you'll forgive me. It's got an enlarged bolt handle. I like that a lot, and it does have an Acu trigger style trigger. It's kind of got that inner blade that allows you to kind of preset or, you know, get most of the load taken up before you give it just a little bit more pressure and you take the shot. And it also has a 5-round detachable magazine that is actually stagger fed, essentially. Using the wrong word probably, but you know what I mean. It's more like an AR mag in the sense that the rounds are staggered in the magazine. They're not just all in one line. So it allows it to be flush, and I kind of like that. I have had a little bit of a problem with rounds hanging up in the feed gate or feeding into the chamber, but it's only done it a couple times, so I can't say that it's been a consistent issue. I have not shot the gun a lot, but I have put probably about 100 rounds through it so far. So anyway, let's jump straight into it. I have a huge cluster to show you guys for the end results is what we kind of did. So what we ran was a Satterlee test using Reloader 15, H4350 powder, Peterson large rifle primer brass, I think like 8 different kinds of bullets, and I think we had 48 different rounds that we shot. So and they all were kind of working up to max charge. Actually, not necessarily working up to max charge so much as working back from max charge, because we shot 4 rounds with each bullet and powder combination type. Also, we used Federal gold medal match primers, just for those of you that are interested. Like I said, I'm doing this from memory from about a year ago, but I just printed off all this stuff and I'm kind of winging it, so bear with me. But anyway, we had 8 different kind of bullets, and we worked about 1.5 grains back from the max charge. So we would shoot, like, say 40 grains, 40.5 grains, 41 grains, and then 41.5 grains, 41.5 being the max charge, and we did that with all of them across the board. So we shot up to the max charge with Reloader 15 and H4350 using the different kinds of bullets, all using the same brass and primers. I'm going to show you the target real quick, and you're going to understand why this is so chaotic. So we shot a Satterlee test, which means we were more or less measuring velocity, not so much speed, but we did do it at 100 yards. This is the target. So if the light will not be a turd, you can tell it's pretty chaotic. There's a lot going on here, and there is too much of a cluster here to kind of make out what's going on. Notice that we've got a few rounds that are kind of just floating around edge to edge here. That's something we'll go over here in just a second. This is probably going to end up being a long video, so I apologize, but there's a lot to go over here, and I'm going to try to do my best to present it in a fashion that's actually digestible, because there is quite a bit that we have to go over. So most of the time I'm probably going to be looking at my phone and looking at this little spreadsheet here so that I can kind of go over the analytical results, or the numbers per se, instead of you know, just kind of trying to do it from memory. Obviously, I can't look at that thing and tell you what shots are where. So I took pictures of it and I marked the bullet holes where each of the shots are. That's what I'm going to be showing you guys as we go through this so that you can actually see the groupings from 200 yards. Bear in mind, the powder charges are different, so we're not necessarily shooting for groups, but we also wanted to see where they were going to be hitting on paper while we were going through trying to find various speed nodes for these powders. Now, continuing forward, I am going to start throwing up some pictures, hopefully now. Matt, remember to throw up pictures right now. The first thing that we shot was a 100 grain Lapua Skenar bullet. The first 4 loads I did not get velocity data on, which I'm kind of okay with because they shot like dirt except for the 120 grain Spear Gold Dot with Reloader 15, if I remember correctly. That one actually shot decently well, and like I said, I'll be showing pictures that are labeled so you guys can see. But the 100 grain Lapua Skenar, the 107 grain Sierra Match King, both with Reloader 15, shot pretty poorly. The lightweight bullets didn't like the gun. They were all over the place. And then the 120 grain Spear Gold Dot shot pretty good, actually. I wouldn't mind retesting that bullet. And the 129 grain Hornady Soft Point were all unmeasured with velocity, but we were shooting up to the max charge on all of them using Reloader 15. Now, moving on to something that we have some data for. Starting with the 123 grain Hornady SST, we were using Reloader 15, and we saw a good speed node between 38.5 and 39 grains of powder. There was a 2 foot per second difference between the powder charges at about 28.35 feet per second on the first charge, and the second being 28.37. So there's a nice little speed node between the two, good flat top on the graph, which hopefully you guys will be able to see in the pictures as we're talking through this. So I like to see that. That was cool. I like to see speed nodes on the top end of things because it makes your life a little bit easier. They also grouped relatively well. I'm not going to say they grouped great, but it was enough at 200 yards with this brand new gun that had been mildly broken to consider trying to explore that further. So we'll move on to the 129 grain Hornady SST, which is a very similar story. Using Reloader 15 again, we had 38.5 grains of powder producing 28.17 feet per second, and 39 grains of powder producing 28.19 feet per second. So there's a nice little flat top again there on the very top end of the powder spectrum for that powder, which was really nice to see. So those two performed relatively well and very similar in respect to one another. So moving on to the 130 grain Sierra Game Changer bullet using Reloader 15, you can probably see there's a pattern here. We are using, or rather we're kind of stepping it up in grain weight of the bullets. We're going from lightest to heaviest. So there's a slight difference because we had to switch over powder here in a moment, but we got a very similar story once again using 38.5 grains of powder getting 28.02 feet per second and 39 grains of powder producing 28.08 feet per second. That was pretty cool to see because 3 times in a row on the higher end of the spectrum we got a nice plateau right at the top of the powder spectrum. So that worked out really nicely. Again, on the graph you guys can see that we're getting very consistent velocities with a difference in half a grain of powder, and that makes it a lot easier when you're loading because you don't have to be quite as stringent when you are weighing your powder charges. You should do it anyway, but still it just kind of eases your mind a little bit. So next thing you guys will be viewing is the 120 grain Spear Gold Dot with H4350. So this one we were using 42.5 grains of powder and 43 grains of powder to get our speed node kind of in the middle there, and that produced a velocity of 27.55 and 27.64, which is about 11, or rather a 9 foot per second difference between the two. So that's another good flat top that we got between those two charges. Moving on from that, we're going to have the 130 grain Sierra Game Changer once again with H4350, and that one didn't really produce anything worth noting. There wasn't any really great flat tops or velocity nodes that we saw, and the group wasn't anything that was very impressive either, so not really something worth expounding on any further, so we'll just move on to the next one. The next thing we're going to be looking at is the 140 grain Hornady open tip match bullet, or boat tail hollow point, whatever you want to call it, shooting H4350. Now this one was interesting because as you're looking and seeing the velocities, there wasn't anything really worth noting. There wasn't any great velocity nodes or anything, so that's not really something that we would jump on by any means or be excited about. But we did have an extremely good group downrange compared to the other groups that we shot. So we were shooting a Satterlee test, so really the velocities was what we were looking at, but we got a really good group with these bullets, considering there was a complete grain and a half difference between all of the shots that were fired. The first one we didn't even get a velocity on, but they grouped really well at 200 yards. Considering this rifle is a sporter barreled rifle, it shot very well. So I am definitely going to be exploring that further in the future, so stay tuned if you guys want to see that, because we are going to be looking at that more deeply. So moving on from that, we're going to go to the 140 grain AMAX by Hornady, which did not produce the same kind of group, so those bullets were very different in terms of accuracy downrange. Shot these with H4350, and the speed node was at 40 grains and 40.5 grains, and we had a 1 foot per second difference at that bottom end. So normally, if I could get some of the higher velocities on something like that, I would, but with a 1 foot per second difference between the two, I would probably try to shoot that if I could get it to do that consistently whenever you went to shoot those again. So that was pretty cool to see, because it was pretty much the exact same velocity with a half grain difference. Lastly, we're going to look at the 140 grain Berger Elite Hunter bullet. There were no speed nodes that were worth mentioning on this. However, they did group pretty good as well. And Berger bullets, especially when you're getting around the VLD bullets, they are much more sensitive to seating depth. So this test wasn't really necessarily something that I was considering looking very specifically at the grouping, because I know that they're kind of touchy. You have to really tune them to get them to shoot well with the seating depth, and I did no testing on that whatsoever beforehand, so I just kind of threw them in there just out of curiosity. But they still grouped pretty well, considering I did none of that work beforehand. So they grouped probably most similarly to the Hornady bullets with no low development whatsoever. I was pretty impressed to see that, and I'd be curious to see what seating depth testing would produce later on down the road. Well, that is the last of it. Those are all the results that we have. You guys got to see pictures of the actual groups that we had. That was honestly kind of complicated for me. Not really easy to format in a way that was very easy to digest, so I hope that was better than nothing, because I know a lot of you guys have really been waiting for me to do some kind of video on this. For those that were interested, I'll try to throw a picture up if I can, but this is what all of the brass looked like. Maybe I can get it in frame to where it's not explosively light. No, it ain't gonna happen. But you can see there wasn't any blown primers or anything like that, so it handled all those charges just fine. There wasn't anything that concerned me while shooting these. I was shooting them in pretty moderate temperatures. It was like, I think 50 degrees maybe. It was a cool day, so it wasn't real hot, which definitely can change your pressure, so that's something to keep in mind on. H4350 is a very temperature stable powder, so shooting in the hotter temperatures, if you got a load that is on the max charge and it's shooting good in 50 degree weather, I wouldn't really be concerned about shooting it 90 degrees, because there's probably not going to be that much difference in pressure. Don't take that for religious, this is fact, okay? This is just me saying this. I am not an expert. I've just been doing this for a little while and doing a lot of testing, and this is just what I have found. So again, read the disclaimer in the description, because that is very important for your safety as well as those around you. So anyway, that pretty much concludes this test, guys. Again, I am going to be doing some more shooting with this rifle and producing more videos on it. This one was kind of chaotic in every respect, every aspect rather. Trying to get everything on paper in a sense that it actually made sense was a little chaotic and kind of hard to do. So again, hopefully this was worth watching. I am going to go ahead and conclude this video. Everything looked safe, primer-wise, brass-wise. Peterson is good, tough brass, so if you are going to be running max loads, run it on good brass. New brass is always better than running something that's been fired like 20 times. So keep that in mind when you're doing any kind of hand loading. Again, read the disclaimer. That is very important for your safety. And I just want to thank you guys for watching and for sticking with me through all the stuff that's been going on. I know it's been really hard, and I hope that you are getting through everything safe, and I wish the best for you and your family and all those around you and all your friends and all those good things. So stay risen, stick around. please subscribe if you guys want to see more. I'm going to try to do more professional videos because this one was so chaotic. It was just kind of me winging it. But again, hopefully it was enjoyable and maybe entertaining because I'm pretty dumb the way that I go through some of this stuff sometimes. But you guys stay safe, stay sharp, stay risen, shoot straight. I'll see y'all the next time. Please be safe. Please be smart. Take care.